Hi, this is Amir Anzor, and I've got a really special episode for you, which is going to discuss a real part of the history of Gambia, a great country in the West Africa, where we had a dictator rule for over 2 decades. And the person that's written a great book on this is Albere Jr. Correa, and he has written Audacity, and he really tells about this dictator coming into power, why he managed to stay this late. And so, Albert, just tell us why you wrote this book.
Well, first, I would say good evening or good morning, wherever you are. Um, my name is Albert Junior Correa, and I am the author of Audacity. I purposely decided to write this book. First of all, I'm Gambian. I was born in Gambia, and I spent over 20 years in London before moving to the United States. And basically, when I was in the Gambia on vacation, I happened to see how different things were growing up, where people were free to speak their mind. You know, even though the economy was not that great, at least people have the freedom to say what they want to say, where they go where they want to go, and associate with whoever they want to associate. But things changed when I went. I saw people were more reserved, scared, and even families were not as close as it used to be. So I started investigating. At the time, I wasn't very privy of the whole situation. I didn't know that Gambia was actually under dictatorship until I started, getting more into the Gambian affairs in terms of listening to radios, like Panderin Baigo, bless his soul. I started listening to Freedom Radio, and then I started hearing. I couldn't believe at first when I started hearing all the brutality that was going on in the Gambia, and I was like, "Nah, this can't be true." So I basically reached out to Pandaribai and I introduced myself and I told him how I could help him, get uh, global awareness in terms of his message. Because I was really concerned that the Gambia was actually turned into, from a smiling coast to a crying coast. And I wasn't happy about it. And then I started, reaching out to all the newspapers. I was actually writing articles under the pseudonym of The Economist. So that's how I started my participation in this struggle to remove Germany. And, I became more privy to, disappearances, executions, and all the craziness that was actually going on. And that made me record all this. And then I felt like I started writing the book 5 years ago. I started writing this book, so this is how everything unfolded into Audacity. And we finally decided to publish the book.
Perfect. And you invited a special guest on this podcast. Can you also introduce Ebrima Chongan?
And so, uh, again, I'm super, super, super excited. I feel honored, privileged, and you know, it's an honor really to be able to share this platform with Mr. Chongan, Ibrahim Chongan, who is an elder. I'll call him an elder statesman because he's been with almost all the different um, governments from independence. He's been with the Jawara regime. Uh, he obviously has gone through, with Yahya Jammeh. He wasn't happy with him, and he's also seen the coup d'etat in '81 as well. So he's more qualified to be the first guest to actually tell us about Gambia and give us, his critical analysis of exactly, all the different governments that he has obviously seen and worked under some of them, and some of them he became activists, you know, fighting injustice and stuff like that. So this is Ibrahim Chongan. Ibrahim was the deputy inspector general of the police, the Gambian police, and he basically lives in the United Kingdom, and he's our guest today. So Ibrahim, welcome.
And also, I wrote a book called The Price of Duty.
Okay, so yeah, he wrote a book, The Price of Justice. He's an author of The Duty of Justice, right? The price of duty. Price of duty, yeah. So I'm about to read it. I'll actually order it and I will read it because I'm going to East Africa on Wednesday. So that's going to be the book that I would be reading on my way.
So, Ibrahim, explain to us your background with the situation. What is your background of working with Yahya Jammeh?
Okay, my name is Ibrahim Ismail Chongan. I'm the last commander of the Gendarmerie, which was part of the armed forces. So I knew Jammeh since around 1978, 79. We went to the same high school, and I was a class ahead of him. So I joined the Gambian Armed Forces in 1982, and he would join in 1984 or 85. So I knew him since school. And then when I was in the Gendarmerie, when he came, I was part of the instructors that were training him. And then we moved on until the government decided to amalgamate the Gendarmerie with the police. And then he went to the army because he was in the military police. The Gendarmerie was responsible for military police. So personally, for me, I was trained in France in the Gendarmerie Officers Training School in France in Melun. So I came back home in 1986, became an instructor in the school, and then rose, became a territorial Gendarmerie commander, became a battalion commander, became a force commander. And then when the Gendarmerie was amalgamated into the police, I became an assistant inspector general of the Gambia Police Force, the first one. So Jammeh, by that time, he was head of the military police, and that's the military police component, which was a very small unit, not more than 10 people, were transferred to the army. So this is how Jammeh goes to the Gambian National Army. And then this is around 1992. So yeah, 1992. And then now we go. For listeners, they need to understand the background. In those days, the Gambian Armed Forces was created around 1984-85. We had a British technical training team that was training the army. And later, for some unexplained reason, Saddam was a great Democrat, a good man, but I think he made a fundamental mistake I have nothing against Nigeria, but that time Nigeria was under military rule, and he brings Nigerian army to train his army. You can't be a Democrat and bring the masters of coup d'etat to come and train your army. So the Nigerians came there, and the boys mutinied, and which resulted in a coup d'etat, and Jammeh became the leader. So on that fateful day of the coup, I was one of the few officers who tried to resist the coup, opened fire on them, and then obviously they had no weapon, superior weapon, and then I ended up being detained for 30 months as a political prisoner, if you look at the amnesty reports of 1995, 96, 97. So I was there for 30 months, and then after, when this was throughout the junta period, and when they got a new constitution, they cannot detain me anymore because I've done anything. So I've gone through mock execution, etc. But that's well documented in my book. Today is Correa's Day. So after that, I left the Gambia and came to the UK as a refugee in 1997, and I went back to school, went to university, studied law, have my LLB, LLM, and I'm called to the bar, Middle Temple. And I've been working here, for 22 years in the civil service.
Wow.
In a nutshell, yeah.
It's quite a story. And what do you think about the reign that came? First of all, how was it to be in prison for 13 months? And then what did you think about the reign that came over the 2 decades that Albere has documented in his storytelling?
Well, it's...
Hold on, Ibrahim. They're saying they can see us on Facebook. Can you go live so that I can share it? Okay. Ibrahim, go ahead. Sorry. They cannot
Yeah.
see us on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the 22 years dictatorship, autocratic regime of Jammeh is well documented. From day one, people have to understand the context. Gambia was one of the few, when most of Africa was a military dictatorship, authoritarian, one-party state. Gambia was one of the few islands of democracy where there was a rule of law, um, and people had right to express themselves, etc. There was virtually no political prisoners at that time. People would criticize the president. Not that everything was nice and dandy, but at least by African standard, the PPP regime were quite tolerant. I mean, they have some issues in terms of the former president staying probably too long and etc. But I think on the whole, comparing them with their peers, they have really done very good because in any event, Gambia, there was no accident that it was called the improbable nation. Nobody thought that the Gambia would stay as a nation. At independence, we were about 300,000, a difficult country, not many resources, surrounded by Senegal, etc. So our elder statesmen of the Fourth Republic, they really tried well. We had a good civil service, etc. And then we had this good there was no attacking the it was
Albere, can you hear?
No, we are sharing, but the jungle is gone. So
Okay.
it's saying, hold on, I'm trying to share this, but it's not working. Can you tag me on your page on the live, like you, because I can. It's not showing on my.
Yeah, let me just.
Yeah.
We maybe have to just edit this part out. Hopefully he'll rejoin us.
Yeah, I'm texting him now. Yeah, I cannot. I mean, I can see you.
You can see me and we can see each other, but not.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, what I'm saying is I cannot see the live.
Are you on your laptop?
Yeah. So it says the video isn't available anymore. The link may have been broken. So
I don't know what happened. Everything just
well, yeah, your line dropped. Hold on, let's.
so it was not on me because the thing was not connecting. So that's why I left and came in back.
Oh, okay. Hold on one sec. Let me see. Yeah, hold on.
I think something went wrong probably with Amir.
Yeah, is that?
It was saying connecting, and it's recording anyway.
Yeah, we will have to edit this out. But what we can do is because we'll put it on YouTube and we'll just edit this out.
Okay.
So Amir, can you tag Jongan or tag me so that I can share it because I can.
I've tagged you.
Hold on, because I cannot see you before we go any further. Because everybody's asking, they cannot. Yeah, it's not.
Why is it? Can you not press right click?
Text me the link.
Okay, let me just do this.
The Facebook
Messenger. Yeah, send it to me on Messenger, and then I'll send it to Jonga, and then we can do it properly. Because
okay,
texting like
link. See if you can share that link.
Okay, yeah. So this. Let me just go in. You sent it on WhatsApp?
WhatsApp.
For some reason, it's not. Let me send you this, Ibrahim, or maybe you can try on my end. See if you can access it.
Or you want me to put it on Facebook or what?
Yeah, see if you can access it because this.
Where will I access it from? From WhatsApp or what?
WhatsApp. Let me send it again. Hold on one sec.
Are we live or we are not live?
We are live, but we are recording. So
We're recording, but we'll
edit
edit this out.
Okay.
Yeah, once it's done. I just want to make sure these people can hear us. So, okay, I sent it to you, Chong. Try.
Well, yeah, you know, I'm calling my son. He knows how to do it because if I get out of the Zoom, there's a problem. So
It's not coming, right? How about if you click on put it
I'll
on
show you my screen. Look at my screen now.
it's my problem. You don't.
Hold on one sec.
You see that?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I see. Okay, let me do something here. I think I should be able to share.
Here.
Yeah, I should be able to share it.
You should be able to go here and share.
Can
Let's
you
go
put,
here. Facebook.com.
Can you give me access to the cursor? Do you know how to do that?
To the?
To the cursor, like the mouse.
Yeah. You go.
Sorry about this, Ibrahim. It's,
No, it's all right. These things they happen. Technical hitches will always happen.
these people are texting.
That's why I always have my son on standby when I have this kind of interview.
I hope you're paying him enough. He needs overtime.
Well, I've paid him enough. Look after him. Tell him to the best university, and that's it.
That's fair.
Albere, we can just record it and then send them the recording. Just let them know maybe that.
They're sitting there waiting till you told them it's
Okay.
going by. That's what I'm saying.
If you send them this link,
okay,
they should be able to view it. If you send them the link on your WhatsApp.
Yeah, I actually posted it, so I don't know.
No, but you didn't post it because when I clicked that thing, it didn't come. It's your old posting that was coming.
Yeah, the open link.
Okay.
So it says you are on YouTube now. It's just coming. Yeah. Can you search for AMIR Anzor ANZUR AMIR?
Here's the link. Well, I've posted the link also on your.
Okay, let me just copy this and paste it. I'll send you the link, Chongan, and then you can also do the same. I
just hope that we've not lost what we've said before.
No, we can edit it.
We've recorded.
Okay. So now I believe it's working.
Can they see it?
Okay. Okay, so it's live now. Chongan, let me send you this quick. Should be good. Okay, that's the link. Let me see if Facebook is working, and then we can be good to go, I think. Okay, Amir, say something, Amir.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's not. Um, okay, yeah. So yeah, okay, it's working now.
Okay, you gotta mute it, and then we'll.
Grandma, your page is on mute. You can go to my Facebook and just share it from the channel.
Okay. So do you want us to continue?
Yes.
Yeah, we gotta. Do you want us to continue with that? What do you want to do?
I think we can continue if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I just wanted to introduce him again. That way, people know.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but Mr. Chogan, you told us your story briefly, which is really fascinating. Now, what you can just tell us about the years that you spent under the dictatorship. Were you in Gambia, or you had left actually in '97, I believe, to the UK as a refugee, right? So you were watching the country from afar.
Yeah, well, remember, I was in prison. I was detained illegally for 2.5 years.
Wow.
And while I was in prison, we were knowing what was happening with smuggle radios, and we were writing to the BBC for our plight about the political detainees, etc. So when I left, I came to the UK, and immediately I found some activists here, like James Bahu, Malika. There's a president called Abdullah Joe, who were in the UK here, who were here, and they've been agitating. They were against it. When I came, I immediately joined them. And we worked particularly under the tutelage of Mr. Job. And then James Bahum was very active. Malika now, he's the boss of the QTV in Gambia. And we started going out. This is like immediately late 97, early 1998, sending out flyers, telling Gambians. But that time, Gambians were not receptive to what was happening in Gambia. I suppose the thing was new and everybody was carried away, and the boys in the military were saying the right things, just like what is happening now in Mali and Burkina Faso. They were saying the right things, soldiers with a difference, etc. But even in early 94, like when they detained us, then they came November 11. They said there was an attempted coup, and that was the first time they extrajudicially executed most of the people who helped them to come into power. So those people were executed, buried without ceremonies, and still Gambians were in denial. And then we go a little bit. Jammeh, things fall apart. They fall apart. The number one and number two. Jammeh arrested his number two and his number three, put them in jail in January. They met us in the jail anyway, by the way. And it was so funny. Those people, we went through a mock execution. They took us from one side of the prison, security wing number 4 to number 1, and isolated us, the three of us, myself, General Chab, who's now the Chief of Defense Staff of the Army now in Gambia, and then Babukar Jeng, who was an arrestor. And we were isolated in this prison wing. This was on 6th of September, they came for the mock execution, tortured us, everything. And then in mid-January, 20-something, I can't remember, 27 or 20 what, somebody who was the leader of that gang for the execution, now he's tied up, chain, leg of him, and the interior minister. And early in the morning, the prison guards just come and tell us, "Oh, we need to transfer you." And I'm saying, "Why? Why transferring us?" And then we just pick our prison, you have nothing, your blanket and your bucket, and then we move. As soon as we were locked into the security number 4, they were brought and replaced us in the cells that we were. What an irony of fate. So we were there, after 2 months, and then I came to the UK. So that was just an anecdote to see. But the Gambians were still in denial. In those days, even if Gambians see somebody like me, they will avoid you because they're afraid. They want to go to holidays. They don't want to be. You don't want to be seen. Oh, you've seen me with Chongan or this is them. They're condemning the government. I suppose this was the saying. I forgot whoever said it. Like when the Nazis came for the Jews, nobody said, "I'm not a Jew," and then they came for whatever they say. I'm not that. Until you are the last, they catch you. That's what happened with Gambians. So, and some people were even condemning us, telling us, "Well, you should give the boys a chance," etc. And some of them were, and to be frank, a lot of Gambians were complicit, and many people use it to settle some scores. And the Gambians who were here, they wanted to go on holiday. But the NIA now, the National Intelligence Agency in the Gambia, is becoming more and more powerful. And they are just arresting at random, jamming anybody he suspects. You could simply be arrested and forgotten. Up to today, there are people who've disappeared. We don't know where, like Chief Mane, one of the journalists. Nobody knows where he is, whether he's dead or alive, you know. So the thing have now, suddenly the thing is affecting and infecting every house in Gambia. But this took a long time, you know. This took long time. Maybe we would move from 98 for 10 years up to 2005, 6, and then now there's a new phenomenon. There's the internet, and people like Panderimbai came on board, and they created Freedom newspaper, and they started denouncing what is happening. And then you have some other online radios. People were writing. Before we reached that stage, there was what we call the Gambia L, where the Gambians would discuss on a list server what was happening in Gambia. So because of the way that Jammeh muscled all newspapers, nothing, everything was controlled by him. So the people have no choice to use VPN to listen to this online radio. We were out of the country. This was not good for the dictators. And suddenly people are realizing, hang on, people are disappearing. And these people are explaining specific cases, explaining this issue. And people like me and other people were giving interviews and explaining what is happening. And this was a very difficult and a peculiar situation. Even your own family will try to call you, try to put pressure on you to keep quiet. You say, oh, you're putting us at risk, etc. So for me, I'm very lucky that I have a father who was a soldier and a policeman, retired. He was not afraid. Even within the family, my stepmom would say, you cannot talk. And my dad said, well, leave him, man. He has a right to talk. You cannot exile somebody and you want him to shut up. So he will tell me, son, speak up your mind. But so many other people, their family will put pressure on them and they will keep quiet. And also, Jammeh wasn't stupid. He knew how to fight us. He used money and get some of his people in the diaspora. If he knows that you don't have a good job, you are weak, he will send you money, and then he gets his own propagandists in the diaspora to try to counter the narrative. But it was becoming more and more untenable, because the thing is, not only you are having now executions, disappearance, Jammeh has even created another parallel armed forces, like creating junglers, that like a special force of policemen and army, etc., who were executing people. People were disappearing. And to the credit of late Pam Derimbai, he made a lot of exposure. But many Gambians didn't want to believe. I can understand. Probably people were afraid, because if you know you could be locked up, even if you are catching Gambia listening to Freedom, or I remember I published my book in 2009, my first book. I had to smuggle the manuscript to the Gambia. One of my friends is called Biran Toure. He was living in Canada, so he came by England. I have to give it to him. He smuggles it, because when I was writing my memoir, there's a part I write about my father, and I wanted my father to see that part, so that whether he agrees on that. So everything had to be smuggled into the country. But if you are catch, you're finished. Not even if you're caught. Even if they suspect you, they will detain you. And they take you to the intelligence headquarters, and they create these panels. They come and torture you at 1 o'clock, bring you from the jail, torture you, etc. So many other things. I don't know whether you're following the case of one of the longest serving interior minister in Switzerland, where they would arrest women, rape them, etc. But the Gambian people just didn't want to know, or didn't want to understand. I don't know whether it was fear or they were in denial. It could be both, you know. So when the changes came, the current government created a Truth and Reconciliation and Reparation Commission, the TRRC, and I was the first witness to open the TRRC. And then now you have over hundreds of witnesses, and all what we were saying with Panderi, what other people were saying, what we were saying, has now come in the open. There was this jungler called Jallo, I forgot his first name, who explained how he killed more than 50 people. You know, as the carrier bag or Sainsbury, they will just arrest you and just put this carrier bag, tie it to your head and suffocate you. I mean, that is how they even killed one of the former chief of defense staff called Ndur Cham. And then when this TRRC happened, Gambians now realizing, well, because we were all in denial, and everybody was saying, no, Gambians are peaceful. They will not ever do that. No, it was foreigners. He had some foreigners. And the interesting thing about it is that everybody was involved, all the tribes. people used to kind of try to say, Jammeh, he was playing some tribalism. There's no doubt about that. His tribe, he came from a minority tribe. It's normal in dictatorship. If you come from a minority tribe, you need to empower your people to protect you. But when the TRRC, you will see that the killers were from every tribe, from all the tribes, Fula, Wolof, Jola, Mandinka, everybody. So it was an equality of opportunists who, they were doing all these things. So you can see, for somebody, you have to understand the history of the Gambia. President Jawara was there for 30 years. There was an attempt to overthrow him. Only one person was executed, and that person had already killed his commander, and he was on a death row. And when the attempted coup happened in 1981, they went to the prison, opened him, he came out, and he was again involved with treason, fighting, and all those things. He was the only person executed. They have not executed anybody. Can you imagine a country like that? It was so peaceful, and then suddenly, you have a secret police running the whole show. So it was a terrible situation. People like me, I stayed 20 years. Lost my dad, lost my mom. I lost my mom first, lost my dad. I couldn't go. And what happened to me has happened to thousands of Gambians. And Jammeh wouldn't even allow, if you are a serious activist, if you are dead, he would even allow your body to be taken back to Gambia. There was the case of Buba Balde, who was a minister in the First Republic, even Kukwe Sambasayang, the chief architect of the 1981 coup. So you can see Jammeh has just gone mad. Because the thing is, I always tell people, the Jammeh I knew at high school and in the Zangamari, who I participated in this training and I commanded him, and the Jammeh who was president, they were quite different people. But there's this English saying that a man can suffer like what happened in prison and survive it. You can only test a man or woman when you give the individual power. Then you really see the colors of this guy. And to be fair to Jammeh, in the early days of the coup, the most ambitious person is Edward Singate, who is a mixed race, who was born in England, but his father is Gambian, and he joined the Gambian army. He was the most vicious person. Jammeh was even afraid of killing in the beginning, in the first few months, because we recall when we were in detention, there was Kante, who was a spokesperson briefly for the junta. Edward visited Valentine Strasser, who was the young military ruler in Sierra Leone. And when he went there, apparently Strasser had already executed the former Inspector General who was in prison, Bombay Camara. And he told Singate that, what are you people waiting? You need to set up example of the senior officers you've detained at Mile 2. That means, i.e., myself, my former boss, and the other senior officers. But I understand that when Singate came back from Sierra Leone and was trying to propagate it, Jammeh shut him up and tell him, no, we are not going to kill anybody, etc. But obviously, when the November 11th incident happened, and they started extrajudicial killing, killed about 14 or 15 people, the Pandora's box has been opened now. And then Jammeh eliminates his number two, who was almost mad, shooting cars, etc., Sana Sabali. And then Jammeh suddenly becomes increment. Obviously, once you kill once, you are not afraid. And then he started eliminating. But what was interesting also, all the people who were doing the killing for Jammeh, all of them died mysteriously. Whether he poisoned them or what. Musa Jammeh, who was my squad mate, we joined the Zanamuri in 1982 together. So many other people. And also the heads of the intelligence, most of them died mysteriously. So I think it's for researchers like Mr. Correa to go and research that properly so that we know whether they were poisoned or what happened. So you can see the picture of what has been happening on the Jammeh's reign. And not only that, but not Jammeh has only killed, raped, maimed, exiled one of the best and the brightest of our country. But what he did was he destroyed ethics. Before Gambia, people respected elder people. People respected religious leaders. But he destroyed all that myth. He put religious leaders in prison, corrupted some of them, corrupted the elders. He goes to a family. Me and my brother, I was a permanent secretary or director in the First Republic. He will dismiss me and then promote my younger brother and give him position. So even within families, he divided them. So in Gambia, and we are still suffering the effects of that, where truth is becoming very lonely in our country. You know, people are just praise singing and doing some stuff. So I'll have a pause here.
So let me come in. I just have a few things. So can you tell us exactly when you first encountered Jame as a person? Like, was it in high school or in the military? When did you first realize?
I encountered him in high school around 1978, 79, because I went to Gambia High School in 77 and he came in 78. So 79, 80, I encountered him. And also I got some childhood friends. I don't want to mention their names, who were in the same class with him. So obviously when I see these childhood friends, Jambe knew me, and also we live in the same neighborhood in the Gambia. You know, I live in Latikunda, for the Singate. So I live in next to what is in the Gambia now, where you have the Alliance Francaise. We call it Bakadaji. So
by the stadium, by the mini stadium, right?
Exactly. That's where I was born and grown up. And Jambe was living in Uncle Alphonse Tamba's house next to LK School, next to Fode Singate, the Seconds, the Giants, and all those things, and the Diab lady. Who would become an MP and ambassador? Ramzia, next to Ramzia's house. And then we used to go and play football at LK School. So, and then he comes and joined the Zanamori, meets me there. I was an instructor, played a part in training. And then we knew each other. And then we lived opposite each other from 1989 up to 1994. Basically, we have a very short fence in between us. My official residence, where I was living, the military police was opposite my residence. So that was the police, and Jamie had a room there. So he was my neighbor.
So he's technically, you've known him personally then?
Personally, yeah, and he will come, because at that time I was married. He was not married. He will come to my house. I'll give him food. You know, Gambia, how it happens, He'll come and eat. He was, even if I have a beef with my wife, he will come and say, so
no, they're really peacemaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically what we're trying to ascertain, like with the research, because there's a lot of conspiracy theory as Jame's citizenship, his birthplace, his birth date. So I focused a lot of my research on, the man himself. Like, is he Gambian? Is he not Gambian? So what I did, I looked at, so he was 29 years old when he came to power. And so if you're saying he joined the army between 78, 80.
No, he didn't join the army 78. He joined the army in 84.
Gendarmerie, sorry.
Yeah, Gendarmerie in 84, yeah.
Okay, so let's say his military career started in 84.
Yeah.
So 84 to 1996, that's about 12 years.
No, to 94, yeah, 12 years. Yeah.
To the coup. So I took it
10 years. 10 years.
No, 84. He said he joined the Gendarmerie.
Yeah, but the coup happened in 94, isn't it?
94, not 96. Okay, sorry, it's my mistake. So 1994 to 84, it's 10 years. And so we looked at his high school record. So he joined Gambia High School from 1978 to 1983.
Yeah.
So that's 5 years. And then he attended Kanilai Primary School and later St. Edward's Primary School in Buyam from 1972 to 1978. That's 6 years. Right?
Yeah.
So if you add 10 years plus 5 is 15, plus 6 is 21 years. So if you take 21 years out of the 29 years before he became the day of the coup, before he did the coup d'etat. So basically we are left with 8 years research to find out from year 1 to year 8, how did he come about, and where was he, what was he doing? So the other friend that we could think of, I don't know if you know this friend called Mustafa James Kujabi that I'm trying to reach, because he's the only the guy that we did a very extensive research, and this is the only name that came up, Mustafa James Kujabi, as his childhood friend. So this is the guy that said he knew Jammeh from childhood. But I don't know if he was military or he was just a regular.
I don't know him. You know, with Jammeh, something very weird. I told you that he was my neighbor for 5 years before the coup happened.
Yeah.
I never saw his mom. He knew my mom. He knew my stepmom. He knew, obviously, my dad is well known. He knew both my mom and my stepmom. But I never saw the mom there. And apparently the mom was in Bakau. And, Bakau, where we live in the Atlantic Road in Bakau, and Bakau by the market is no less than a mile or 1.5 miles. So something very, very strange is happening. But on the point of his Gambianness, I would labor on that point. We all know what has happened in Gambia. If I look at you, probably your grandfather came from Guinea-Bissau, Kanchunku. And then, so that's why
That's the truth. That's the truth.
Yeah, so that's why I am not really, I wouldn't labor much on his nationality. He grew up in Gambia, he went to Biam, he went to Gambia High School, and there are so many people who are judges today, who are top military, who are top civil servants. We know their fathers came from Guinea-Conakry or others from Senegal or others from Guinea-Bissau or others from Casamance. So I don't think we should label really whether it's the legacy of colonialism,
Yeah, but we want to also be able to put this to rest and, just know so that next time somebody comes out of the book and tries what Jammeh tried, we don't have to just blindly follow them. We need to at least, research and investigate who these people are before we ask them. Because with Jammeh, I understand, like you said, Jawara did some mistakes, in the past. But at the same time, that's not an excuse for Jammeh to,
No, the overthrow was not justified. What I wanted to say, don't just say, I said Jawara made some good things. Like we had a good civil service, there was freedom of expression, there was rule of law, there was democracy. But there is no system that is perfect. There were some transgressions here and there. And unfortunately, our dad, may he so rest in peace. I think he overstayed. If he had left in 1991, when he said he was going to live in Mansa Congo, probably we would have got what happened in Senegal. We would have got a change of government. Probably they would go to election and Sidibé might have won because he was more popular as an opposition. He has a core vote. And the PDP was very divided at that time. You had different factions. So probably we would not have got a coup. But the thing is, with hindsight, it's very nice to say all these things. But it's good to do research. And I'm really pleased that somebody like you, Mr. Correa, you've done a great research. And also it's quite interesting that somebody like you coming from a minority tribe is doing this fundamental work. If somebody else would have done it, people would have said, it's because he came from
vested
exactly. You know the politics of Gambia. You know what is happening. Sadly, Jammeh left us with a very divided state, and when the change happened immediately, we were not able to address those things. Those were the first things to address. I always say that Jammeh did do tribalism. There's no doubt about that. He tried to enable his tribe and so on. But the Jolas were victims like any other person. Because he went to Foni.
Jola suffered more under Jammeh. When we did
that, proportionally, anyway, he went there with those that could be done.
All the people in TRRC, if you look at the bar chart or the graphic visuals, actually the Jolas were the highest people that came. Basically saying they were tortured or they suffered.
So everybody, the guy used his tribe. The guy used his tribe like every dictator will do.
We have Yang is on as well. So welcome, Yang. And we just have to wrap up quickly and then we'll have him on. Hold on one sec. Let me just disconnect this. Okay. So yeah, what I was saying is we just want to basically get the facts out and see exactly the whole person behind this enigmatic, character. That so that next time at least we can learn from, if somebody comes and did the same thing Jammeh did, then we don't have to just follow them. We have to be able to say, okay, I know this guy. Because like from year 1 to year 8, we haven't had anybody, like you said, you've never met Jammeh's mom. All of a sudden, he shows us this woman that he's calling his mother, and then we don't know, we've never seen a picture of his father, we've never seen photos of his childhood. We know if you
But I think his father, when he died, I think OJ helped to take the body to Kanilai to bury him. I think there's a story about that.
the OJ knows about the father.
Yeah,
But
you need to do a research on that. Yeah.
yeah, so that's what we're working on from year 1. So we have in 1984 to 1994,
Mhm.
I was in the military for 10 years.
Yeah.
So in Gambia, high school is 5 years, but he started Gambia High School in 1978 to 1983. So that's five. That's 5 years, and then his primary school records that we found was 1972 to 1978. So that's 6 years. So basically, he became the president age 29. So if you add 10 plus 5 plus 6, that's 21 years. You take that out of the 29. So 8 years of missing data that we are.
Yeah, but remember, you start your primary school at the age of 6, or some people in the
But
provinces.
we don't know the facts yet. We're just going by the Gambian standards of,
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, in the Gambia, you start your primary school at the age of 6, and
Right.
most people in the provinces will start at 7 or 8 because because the birth certificate and all those things.
Yeah, or the scarcity of kindergarten.
Or in some instances, the parents would not even allow you to go to school. They might need you on the farm for some time, etc.
Yeah, and then maybe financial issues too.
Exactly.
Yeah, but in Gambia also, if you're from the rural areas, you have circumcision, which is a very common practice amongst the Gambian. Hello, Nyang. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you so much.
You're looking good. So hang tight. We should be with you next momentarily. So back to Chongren. So basically, I was talking about the circumcision. There's nobody that actually came and said that they shared like Mba with Jammeh. So we don't have record of
But do the Christians do circumcision?
Yeah, everybody does circumcision in Gambia. It's the common practice.
Yeah.
But if you're from the rural areas, it is like the Jola tribe. What the research showed was actually the Jola tribe. It is mandatory. It's in the phonies to do the foot and puff, they call it. You know. So we were just trying to ascertain if somebody actually remembers being in the same,
Right.
circumcision.
But remember the geographical location of Kanilai. Kanilai is right at the border.
Right.
So there's nothing stopping them also to go across the border and do the circumcision. And then later on, people move on. These people move on the side of Senegal. These people move on the side of the Gambia. So all these things need to be factored in.
Yeah. Okay.
Because across the whole of the Gambia, people don't respect those borders because the borders there is the cousins who are on the other side. It's just like.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so all these things need to be factored into place because Gambia and Senegal is unique. We are even our regions share the same name. We share the same people, not only culture, relatives. Because of there have been constant movement before they draw the line, and there has been movement since the line has been drawn until after independence. There is movement continuing up and down. All of us have blood from Senegal, from Guinea-Bissau, from Guinea-Conakry. It's a mix.
Okay, so what about the christening? Because in the Jola tribe, we also found out that after 7 days of birth, everybody has to have some type of christening ceremony.
Yeah, but I don't know how much you guys have researched in Canada. He must have some relatives.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But we haven't had record of anybody saying, or any elder or anybody say, "Oh, my dad was there, my mom was there, or my grandfather was there when he was christened." We just had one person, Mustafa James Kujabi, that actually calls him his childhood friend.
Where is that
But-
guy? Is he still alive?
I don't know. That's the guy we're looking for now, because we want to know when exactly he basically knew Jammeh.
He's in New York.
You know him?
Yes, just ask the Gambians in New York and you'll get hold of him.
So he's in New York. Okay.
Okay. Is he related to the guy who was the minister, Malafi Jaju, or something like that?
No, Ablai
Okay.
Kujab.
Ablai Kujabi. Okay, yes. Okay, Ablai Kujabi.
Where's Albere Kujabi? His name also came out.
He's in Kerseri.
Okay.
And there's another one called Jasaja Kujabi,
Yes.
and that's the one that passed away mysteriously.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, so ADS is what we need to figure out so that we know if Jammeh is actually a Gambian. Because the research is actually showing that he might have been brought to the Gambia at a young age. And he's not a known Gambian citizen by birth. So that's what the research. So ADS is what we miss right now. And so you met Jammeh at Gambia High School, Chongan, right?
Yeah. He was a class below me.
Okay, so what would you say he was like? Was he quiet? Was he like?
Well, he was just like any other student. There was nothing extraordinary about him. And but you know, Gambia, they always try to create myth of people. I told you I lived with him opposite me for 5 years. I know him thoroughly. But suddenly people say that he has powers and all these things. Oh, excuse my language, that's all rubbish, you know. So,
Yeah, so was he like a resentful person? Like, was he somebody who was very resentful? Like, when you have conversations with him, was he always complaining about people that had more than him, or?
I know he was an envious guy, but he was a very cunning man. He never sold it. Because obviously I was his senior in the military, and he was my neighbor. He tried to be fine. But behind my back, he would say some things, you know, after I would hear. But he was a coward. He would not say
He's two-faced. He's not.
Exactly. He's a two-faced character. He even went at some point in the Fourth Republic, went and tried to accuse people like me that we are about to make a coup, etc. And then he was, you know, he was received at the State House. They hired him, and he went. And so he knew he's a very manipulative character. I think probably that's the word. And the envy came when he really came to power. I said it in the TRRC. You know, I was a young commander. We had a Pajero. In those days, there were not many Pajeros. Not many people have like nice cars like Nyang Jai now. So you know, when he became a president, he had you know, his problem is about cars. Some of the cars he have, I don't even know. When people tell me, I don't know. Nyang knows the cars more than me. So he lived next door to me. He saw us. We were going out, etc. So he was and another thing was, all of us, when we were going out in school before we get married, we had girlfriends here and there. For him, it's very difficult to point out who was his girlfriend, etc. I know there was some, I won't say anything, but there was a man and woman who kind of like him used to come there. So I won't mention the name. But people listening to me who are in the Zandamuri will know. So Jammeh was a very deceptive character. So when he see you, he will say, yes, sir, blah, blah. And I don't know whether you're aware. For my sins, I saved him in Basse when he was drunk and fought with some people. You know, my Senegalese commander told us we should dismiss him. And I fought tooth and nail for him. Yeah. But that's what a young commander does for his troops. So there's nothing extraordinary about it. So but he was a very manipulative character. And I remember also on an occasion, because there was the Kukoi people, there was somebody called Lieutenant Yahya Jammeh, who were dissidents who went from Libya. And one night he came and knocked my door. He was so scared. He said, oh, they're mentioning in the radio my name. I said, he's not you. These are the Kukoi people. Have nothing to do with you. But suddenly he becomes president. He's the biggest warrior, etc. And he was not religious at all when he lived next door to me.
Okay, so
you know, he will smoke weed. He will, he would drink.
Did he drink alcohol?
Of course, he would drink alcohol, and then he would then go and hold the Quran and say, you know, Bilal, well, I will drink alcohol or eat pork. So he was basically a hypocrite. But give him credit, he knew how to con the Gambian people. But the Gambian people also, many people were gullible, And some people were just like him. They were just jealous. They were trying to settle scores, because some of the language he said when he just took over about the national cake, those who were eating meat will not eat meat, blah, blah. From those 4 speeches, alarm bells should have rung. But, our country, the problem is just not the leaders. The problem also is our people.
So you think the culture is also played a part?
Yeah, so you always get the leader that you deserve because the leader will come from the people.
So finally, so we looked at his cultural background, like, obviously, Emma and Jago, we share a very similar cultural practice to the Jola tribe. Would you say some of the characteristics he was displaying, like the supernatural stuff, the superstition, would you say his cultural background played a role in?
No, I would accept that. Any other person who come in Jawara's time, they used to rumor that no gun will fire behind him. So it's our people who create this stupid myth, which doesn't exist. It has nothing to do with his background. Surely Jammeh tried to use his background, which is a lie, to say, we've been marginalized with this. If you are marginalized, how did you become a lieutenant? How did you join the army? You were in school, I grew up in Latikunda. Half of the compounds were Jola Kunda, Jambe Kunda, Baji Kunda, Jiba Kunda, Sani Kunda. We grew up together. We have no problem. We went to the same school. Some of them went to St. Teresa's. There were only 2 schools. And for those of us who went to Serakunda school. And we just progressed normal, went to high school. And some of us who had opportunities went overseas. Those of us who joined the army. So he was trying to propagate and make everybody trying to say that. As I said, the PPP guys were not saints, but at least they gave us a nation. They gave us a good civil service. There was rule of law. People were able to express themselves. And you have to look at the context of the Gambia. And as a young person, they would not know. At independence, the British, the tar road was stopped at Brikama. It's the PPP who took it to Soma, took it to Basse. It's natural that when Jammeh comes, he takes it from Bara and take it to where? Everything becomes incrementally. So many people are just shouting, but at least the First Republic were building institutions. Jammeh came and just destroyed the institutions.
So so are you telling us that the Jawara regime, there was no, like, they accused Jawara's regime of only some people enjoying the pride. There was like this clan. You have to be a part of that clan to really enjoy, life during Jawara's time.
What I would say is, people had opportunities to rise up. A typical example is me. I'm not a Mandinka. My mother is from the provinces, from Kolikunda. I have no connection with Banjul. Many people think that I'm a Banjulian. I'm not a Banjulian. And I rise through the ranks. I went to high school. There's no system that is perfect. There will always be transgressions here and there. But overall, there are a lot of people. Some of the ministers in the PPP government, when they came from the provinces, they came to high school and got scholarship. So people will always try to propagate a thing. Have everybody ever given you tangible evidence? It's normal when you overthrow a government, you will try to make all excuses. You didn't see in the early days of the coup, Jammeh, their anger was more directed towards the Nigerian army. Then afterwards, opportunists, Gambians, intellectuals, tell them, no, you cannot say that. You have to criticize Sadauda. One thing, Sadauda, nobody will take it from him that he was a Democrat. My only thing is, I think he overstayed. But that was relative to what was happening in Africa. Most of the founding presidents stayed for 20 years, 21 years. That I think he overstayed. He should have left in 1991 when he said he was going to leave. But with hindsight, it's easy to say that. We are not saying that all was rosy and dandy, but at least the system was working. That was why the guy said an improbable nation. But when Jammeh came, he came and destroyed everything. But it's not only him. With the complicity of a lot of Gambians who are today.
Jammeh benefited from Jawara because from our research, he actually was awarded a scholarship to do his high school. So
exactly. And then he joined the army, and then but I was developing an important point. Hopefully, Young will develop it later. A lot of our people are complicit in what happened. Jammeh alone couldn't do that.
So do you get this Messiah syndrome in Gambia, where People like to look. Everybody wants to be a leader. Nobody wants to follow. Nobody wants to be under anybody. Like,
No, it's not only that, it's deeper than that. I'm talking about people being just opportunists. People, so long as their bread is buttered, they don't care. They don't look at the national interest. A country has to get people who look at the national interest before their own personal interest. So most of these people who are enabling Jammeh, who are very complicit, most of them are reincarnated themselves now as dissent. Everybody started condemning Jammeh during the impasse. A lot of people were...
Let me ask you this question quickly. Where's all these people that were educated abroad? Like all these people that had the means to travel and study abroad. When they come back to Gambia, since you've been in the government, you've seen people obviously go abroad and study, come back. Is it difficult to implement your studies in terms of...
Which period are you talking about? You talk about the First Republic or during Jammeh's time?
The First Republic and Jammeh. Well, Jammeh, you didn't serve.
Well, in the First Republic, when you study and you come back home, most Gambians didn't want to stay abroad. You study, you come back home, there's a high chance you will get a job in the government or private sector. But they did not just promote you today you just come from university today, 2-3 years, you are permanent secretary. No, it takes you about 20 years. You will go through a period of training and you will rise slowly. You go and become a deputy commissioner, you come back, become a DPS, etc. You rise through the ranks, but Jammeh came and just destroyed that. You come, he likes you, and then you catapult you to permanent secretary without 5 years after university.
The reason I asked is, for example, I live in the West. I've studied here. If I went to Gambia, I would be wanting to implement. If I was an architect, I would want to go to Gambia and implement an infrastructural development plan that would obviously change the landscape of the Gambia. So that's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, no. But the problem is,
like Nyang is an economist. If he was to go to Gambia, and try to implement what he studied, how difficult is it in terms of people accepting or adapting to his education background? Like if there's, because every sector evolves every time. Even tech, like today they could have Java programming, like 0.001. They could have version 0.02, and you have to basically change.
Yeah, but let me come in here. First of all, you have to get a system that is operating, that is working. Nyang is a brilliant economist, knows everything about finance, etc. I follow his writings religiously. But you will be a drop in the ocean. They will not allow you. If the system is not functioning, no matter how brilliant, no matter how experienced you are, you won't make an impact. You're going to be just a drop in the ocean. And
who would you blame in that sense? Because you don't have to really be highly educated to be the president. But the ministers has to be highly educated. The people that actually, the foot soldiers, they have to be highly educated. That's what I believe. But the president, I don't think education should be the metric.
Any president should have a basic understanding of how things are operating. But the most important thing in a country is you need to have a brilliant civil service. A civil service, you can afford to have a minister that is not very highly educated, etc. But you cannot afford not to have a well-oiled, well-disciplined, well-organized civil service, because they will take the political aspiration, put them into projects and programs, and then help the politicians to implement it. So we need to invest a lot of capital in developing our civil service, not just people turning for work. The culture I see in Gambia, you just come and turn up for work and you get paid. There's no serious personal development review to see what added value you are bringing into the system. So we need to bring in that. If you've got a good civil service, you can afford. I'll give you a typical example. Look at America. What happened with Trump? It's because the institutions were correct. They were able to say, hey, you go to the court said, no. What happened in America with Trump and Biden? If it was in Africa, Biden would have been in jail. Period.
Probably dead.
So these are the things that we need to develop. And also what I've seen in Gambia, we don't celebrate our bright and best people. We celebrate our biggest thieves, If you're a big thief, you swindle things, you're a nice guy, you dish out money in the mosque, and here and there, and that's it. So we need. I always say it. We need to go back to the basics. Start teaching our kids from primary school ethics, patriotism, what stake they have in the society, so that by the time they are in the sixth form, they know what is happening. But right now, Jammeh has created a culture of, because he's a president, and then you get young people just finished high school. They are with Jammeh. They're posted to Kanilai. They travel with the president. He's created this culture of all these young people just want to wake up one day and want to make it, want to be a celebrity, want to have it all. It doesn't work like that. You have to grind. I've been working for 41 years to be where I am today. But nowadays, everybody just wants to be like, wow, you from university, I just want to be up on top there. No, you have to grind your way through it. So if we don't do the institutional reforms, you will never get development.
Okay, well, hold on to that thought. Hang tight. If you obviously not too busy, you can.
Yeah, I will stay a bit to hear what Yang saying before I go.
To finish to close once Mr. Njai has his time, then we can have you do your final thoughts.
Okay, I'll be listening to Yang Jai, and then I can just mute and or sometimes I'll be offing my camera so that I can do stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Amir, do you have anything to...
Go ahead, Albert. We've taken up a bit of Mr. Njai's time, so let's have him on. Thank you for being on, and Albert, go ahead and introduce.
Okay.
It's a pleasure.
Mr. Njai, this is a pleasure to have you. I am honored again for accepting this invitation. I'm truly honored, and I want to personally thank you. And I've also followed you, just like Mr. Chongan, religiously. You've also been a true fighter for Gambia, even though, Gambians are not always appreciative of people like you spending your time, your resources, even your life, because you could have actually been killed, with all the activism you've been doing. So this is Mr. Njai. He's an economist. He studied in the United States and went back to Gambia. And I believe he also worked in the telecom industry. So, Mr. Njai, welcome to Amir's podcast. This is Amir. He's the CEO of what's the publishing? Impactful publishing company based in the United Kingdom in London. So, thank you. And I just have a few questions that I wanted to start with in terms of the economy under Jammeh. There's so much conspiracy about how Jammeh was raising funds and where he was getting money from, how he was basically lubricating his economic engine to basically feed the Gambian people. So, what was your overall eulogy of Jammeh's eulogy of Jammeh's financial economic status?
Thank you so much. I think before we answer that, we need to create a context.
Mm-hmm.
See, the context is the era.
Mm-hmm.
1965
Mm-hmm.
to 1994, we need to understand certain things that happened so that we can explain 1994 to 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Gambia didn't fight for independence, nor did the British want to give us independence.
Mm-hmm.
They had to give us independence because immediately after World War II, you had the Marshall Plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the Marshall Plan was effectively a bailout for Western European nations.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who's been bailed out cannot sponsor or finance other people. So theoretically, many countries gained independence just by a stroke of a pen because the colonizers can no longer be able or be in a position to finance their colonies. Notwithstanding, they only gave political independence, not economic independence.
Mm-hmm.
Then Gambia as a country emerged. 1965 all the way to around 1970, you have the Arab boycott. What does the Arab boycott have to do with the Gambian economy? It affected the global space generally. And basically lenders like the World Bank and others were not able to pump monies to Africa like they used to. Then 80s, you had the Great African Famine. The Great African Famine, most of the development partners focus more on Ethiopia and other countries in the Horn of Africa because that was their priority. Then late 80s, early 90s, that's when Gambia started to boom. And unfortunately, I call that period the arrested development because that's when Jammeh came. And basically when Gambia was supposed to take off, we anchored. Now, come to Jammeh's era of 1994-2016. The development space changed significantly. Basically, the tech boom started happening late 90s. We call it the dot-com era. So the new economy started coming up. Venture capitalism created money, and this money filtered through to many places like Gambia. The donors, also petroleum, made a lot of money, and the donors also had a lot of money to spend on development. And during this time, donors started having a conscience because in the 70s and 80s, we had what you call conditionalities. So a lot of people like Jeffrey Sachs blamed the West for the underdevelopment of Africa. And this is the time that development partners like World Bank started having a human face. Included building schools because they were talking about access to education, access to water. And that's the time you had what you call highly indebted poor countries when debt relief was effective. So Jammeh's treasury had more money than any other treasury to date because most of our international debt was freed. So we had more money to spend locally. But one thing we must give to him, he was an ambitious to ways and means to secure funds. And I will also say one thing, he has fast-tracked the development of this country as it relates to infrastructure. One thing he didn't do was, there's one thing building schools, but there's one thing equipping schools with good teachers and resources. There's one thing building hospitals, but there's another thing having great doctors and good equipment in hospitals. So 1994 to 2016, for me, saw the best growth for Gambia in terms of its economic space. And it's not only because of Jammeh. There were a lot of external variables that played because the global economy was bubbling. And Gambia benefited, from that bubble. Was it managed well? The answer is no. Could Gambia have done better? The answer is yes. So basically, I think Jammeh was just lucky based on the era he was president.
Okay. So basically, so you also feel like the way he handled the economy, even though the infrastructure was booming, infrastructural development was booming, the West obviously challenged him on so many policies that he was embarking on in terms of like the LGBTQ, the poisoning of the witchcrafts and stuff like that. So when the West stopped giving him money, how was he able to maintain the economy? Where was he getting money from? Because there was a lot of allegations.
The West never stopped giving Jammeh money, and I think that's a fallacy. The reason I'm saying this, the World Bank is one of Gambia's biggest donor partners, the Kuwaiti Fund, Africa Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, OPEC, and at some point the Commonwealth and EU. So basically, Jammeh was a necessary evil in this sub-region in the minds of the West, and he understood that and he played his cards right. At no point did our money stop coming. Yes, they had what you call prior conditions. So at some point they will say to Jammeh, we will give you this if A, B, and C are to be met, then
Okay.
he will slow doing it, but still disbursements were coming. Up to the day Jammeh left Gambia, we were receiving funds from all our traditional donor partners. So the rhetoric was, we don't like what you're doing. We will threaten you with sanctions, but it never fall through.
So
So if you look at our budget,
Mhm.
at all times, you have revenue that is generated from taxes and you have donor funding. The donor funding was still coming.
Right. So the EU never stopped any checks.
Well, they didn't stop the critical and crucial checks.
Yes,
Maybe
okay.
if they design new projects, they,
They will stop those.
they stopped. Well, I won't even say stop. They never proceeded with the projects, but the commitments that they had with Gambia, they went ahead and fulfilled their obligations mostly. But notwithstanding, they will still diplomatically raise a voice of opposition against some of the things that were happening. But they never, and they've never called his bluff by just closing the pipelines at once.
So our research also showed that would it be fair to say Jammeh was a drug dealer or a drug peddler, or would you say that's not a fair assessment?
You know, in all fairness, I want to first make a statement. Jammeh is the greatest social disruptor Gambia has ever seen. And Jammeh is a populist, someone who appealed to the emotions of people and used that as a way not only to stay in power, but manage the country. Was Jammeh a drug dealer? I will say no, but he facilitated the drug trade. How? If a country will allow private jets to land at its international airport, knowing what the cargo is, then they're complicit. And if the people at the airport were complicit, someone else higher up should have known, and maybe were in the know, and not much happened. So I will say he was complicit in making Gambia a narco state, but I will not say that Jammeh was a drug dealer.
But we've seen, even recently, we've seen containers of intercepted cocaine, loads being, stopped in the port in Gambia, and everybody works scot-free. So maybe drug trafficking or drug trade is something that is normalized in Gambia.
Well, what I'm saying here, I think we're saying the same thing but differently. You asked me a question: is Jammeh a drug dealer? My answer is no, but I believe he is complicit in the narco trade that has happened in Gambia over the years. So yes,
I'm just trying to understand overall how did the Gambia became a drug hub? Because somebody just
see, narcos love weak states, and Gambia is a weak state because our enforcement is lacking. Why? Because people are induced with financial gains at all levels, the highest to the bottom. So basically, this to date has made Gambia prone to the narco trade, and Gambia is a known destination for South American drugs in transit to Western Europe.
So would you also blame the culture, as Mr. Chonglan said? Like we like to be flashy, and people celebrate.
I will not blame the culture because the culture is a victim. I will blame the institutions of state. The institutions of state has failed Gambia and Gambians because our trust is not in our culture. Our trust is in the institutions we have built to serve and protect the Gambia and its territorial integrity.
Yeah, but I'm looking at it from a morality, justice point of view. Like we basically, sometimes we know these people, with fancy stuff, it's like an overnight success. You don't see them hold any briefcase to work. You don't see them in any office. But in the morning, you start seeing them with all this stuff. So sometimes you might say, okay, you cannot just judge people based on that. But it is obvious when the like in the case of the containers in the port, when the names start coming out, that this is the name on the manifest or the bill of loading, and you're like, oh, I saw this guy with a Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon the other day, and his name is obviously surfaced as the bill of loading, the actual shipper of the receiver. Then there's no magic. You can tell that obviously they are involved in drug trafficking.
There's nothing wrong being involved in drug trafficking, but there should be consequences for, involving in drug traffic. I look at Taiwan, for example. They had a culture. The culture wasn't the best. Lee Kuan Yew came up, created a state, and the state has enforcement mechanisms, and people were punished and accountable for their actions. So culture or no culture, people abide with what the state said that this is how Taiwan is going to be. So Gambia, I think we lack institutions and we lack enforcement of our laws. So I will not blame culture. I will blame the inadequacies of the state to enforce laws that will deter people from behaving the way they behave. Where there is impunity, yes, you can bring 20 container loads knowing that nothing's going to happen. Or even if you're caught, you can go at night and settle with whoever you need to settle, from the courts to the police, to the executive, to the army, whoever, or customs. So basically, the problem we had as a country is festering. So culture is a consequential thing for me. I think the biggest thing are the institutions of state.
Okay, so speaking of institutions, I want to focus on, since you're an economist, I want to focus on the banking system of the Gambia and the role of the banking system in any developing state. We're looking at Gambia's case right now. So how would you say the banking system has influenced and impacted on the development of the Gambia? Do you think the bank is playing a good role, or is it just basically another profit-making machine that's just focused on?
It has to be a profit-making machine, but it has to have an objective. I think history plays a big role why our banks are what they are today. There has been a trading nation from inception. The banks were nothing but merchant houses, whereby they finance merchants to do their trade. And they have inherited that post-independence, and they haven't helped significantly in the development of the country. The reason I'm saying this, you will hardly see a bank that has medium to long-term lending profiles, meaning giving people money for 20, 25 years to do development projects. Most of the time, banks do create LCs, letters of credit, for merchants to buy rice, sugar, oil, spare parts. That's what they do the most, rather than working with entrepreneurs who have ideas and they give them loans that are medium to long term. But then again, it's not just the problem of the bank. It's the problem of our financial architecture. And this financial architecture, to a point, it's controlled by the central bank. The reason why I'm saying this, the longest maturity we had up until 3-4 years ago was the treasury bill of 12 months or 365 days. So when banks collect deposits from people and lend to someone, they have to match it to that profile. So in effect, it was making banks to be short-term lenders. So therefore, they really, I won't say favored, they meet the profile of trading houses who want to just bring cars and sell, bring sugar and sell, bring oil and sell, and that will not develop Gambia. And also, the government of the Gambia has delayed what the banks could have done in terms of ushering development in the Gambia, because the government of the Gambia is one of the greatest lenders or borrowers in this economy by way of raising treasury bills. So they, in fact, they have created what you call the crowding out effect. They are competing with businesses for funds that deposit at the banks, because the banks were also buying treasury bills. When the banks buy treasury bills, They mop their liquidity and put it into a parking garage called the central bank for 6 months, 3 months, 12 months. So that is drying up the available liquidity that should have gone to entrepreneurs who have great ideas and want to create investments.
Right. So speaking of the central bank, so would it be fair to say the role of the central bank is to basically raise funding for the government? Would that be one of the
It's not the role. Absolutely not. The primary that is to maintain inflation and also exchange rate stability. These two things are what is expected of the central bank, and that's their core mandate.
So
to make sure that the currency, vis-a-vis foreign currency, is at a respectable rate to ensure that within the economy, inflation is managed. That's what we expect of the central bank.
Yeah, because I'm just asking the question because I came across during the research we came across some of the business activities Jammeh was actually involved in, which is national, he was basically into the drugs trade. He was doing businesses selling, vegetables, pampers, meat. The gateway, the Dumptail gateway, we'll come to that one. He had a taxi ranch. They said he was into the land business, selling land and stuff like that. So would it not be fair to say if Jammeh was raising money for the government, he should have access to the money with all these executive orders he was giving for people to go cash these checks, either government officials, his relatives, or even the military, If that money is obviously money that he personally,
Well, I think we need to distinguish one thing. What Jammeh and his cohorts were doing has nothing to do with economic management, because in economic management, you have the monetary side of it and the fiscal side of it. The fiscal side of it, raise taxes, collect money, send it to the treasury, and the treasury send it to the government's banker, which is the central bank. And when they want to spend, they sign checks, do transfers, whatever they want. And if they are in deficit, they ask the central bank to raise money to cover a short-term gap for them. That is the fiscal relationship that central government should have, the government should have with the central bank. So basically what Jammeh was doing, every country has what you call foreign deposits or domestic deposits. So Jammeh was siphoning money, and that was off balance sheet. So this was not to be seen in our transactions.
So whose money was that? Was that money that came from the coffers of the government, or was it money that, because from the commission of what's the name, Ami Bensouda, all these executive orders that were given to these people to go cash these checks. I want to understand if Jammeh actually deposited his personal money at the central bank.
He cannot deposit his personal funds at the central bank because the central bank don't operate personal accounts, only government accounts. So basically, money is not money until it has created value. But unfortunately, central bank has vaults of paper we call dollars.
Yeah.
When you take those dollars and put them in the economy, it is money, but there is no value underwriting it. And that creates inflation. So most of the funds that were coming out of there were just bills that were in a vault. Some requested for illegally, because there shouldn't be any way or means whereby those funds should be out in the street, because there's what you call money supply, M2. So basically money supply, it's something that's controlled by the banks. And whenever they put money out there, it has to come with corresponding value. So it's just not like throwing paper out there for people to go and buy stuff. Value has to be created in exchange for those papers. Then the money, the denomination of that money now has value. But when Jammeh was in need, they were going to take money out, take it to the safe house, and now pump it in the economy. And that creates distortion, and those distortions were highly inflationary, and it affected both the exchange rate of the dollars, because if you give Jammeh $200 million today, he has no need for $200 million in the Gambian economy because there's no absorption capacity. Therefore, you will take the $200 million in paper money and go and fetch for pounds and dollars, thereby hiking the rate of dollar vis-a-vis the dollars. And that's why we had an incremental rise of, not an incremental, we have used a sharp rise of the dollars vis-a-vis the dollar over the years, especially in the late 2000s. And that is a serious problem that this economy suffered from, because they induced paper money that had no value underwriting it, and it created significant macroeconomic distortions in the Gambian economy.
So with the money supply, how were these leakages able to be obscured from the books? Like how were they actually not able to record these? Because if you put, like you said, if you put something in, it has to be accounted for. If you take it out, it has to be accounted for in the balance sheet. So it's surprising to me how somebody would say, okay, we received 100 million from IMF, and then when you look at the balance sheet, you know, it's actually not matching, because the outgoing has to match the incoming at the end of the day when you balance the books.
Well, so, if you have a bookkeeper that is suppressing data, let's say you have a quarterly report for October through December 2023. You show all the outstanding letters of credit with the commercial banks. You show all the domestic borrowing of government. You show all the net outflows as debt payments to foreign lenders. And you show all the inflows from our donor partners. And that forms the basis of your balance or balance of payments, whatever. So now, if you were to give someone 4 or 5 briefcases of 200 million, it's not recorded. Yes, but the economy at some point will feel it, because you will see an overheating of the economy because expenditures will go up. But it's not recorded, you will not see it, but you will sense that something is fundamentally wrong. And basically that was happening, suppression of data.
So would you say that then Gambia is lacking in terms of technology? How does the central bank, are they still using manual system, or are they using computerized systems? Would you say that technology is actually also causing all these problems in Gambia in terms of leakages? Like if we had payment systems where, like for example, I went to Kenya and everything is online over there. Yeah,
Kenya has been on an electronic payment system for over 15, 17 years now.
And you could tell.
The most matured payment systems in the world today, if you ask me, other than Visa and MasterCard. But back to the Gambia, you know, a system is as good as the very people who manage it. Yes, the central bank is highly computerized, but if you want to do manual transactions of just moving boxes of cash from location A to location B, there is no system that can track that, because the system needs input. So if the input is not coming into the system, hey, if you have a stock of money sitting in a vault and the system knows that you have $6 billion worth of paper money, and there's nothing recorded in the system that you have taken out $1 billion, the system is not that intelligent to say, I saw someone pick it up. There has to be input. So basically, I think there was willful deceit, and this willful deceit will deceive any system. I don't care how good the system is, whether it's made in Silicon Valley or it's made in Hyderabad. It doesn't matter. People wanted to deceive the system, so the system was faulty because people were corrupted.
So you mentioned the bank as a natural lender, or I'll call it business booster. How do you think these banks in the Gambia are actually helping in terms of nation building? Because I see a lot of loans are given to foreigners. Like a foreigner that came to Gambia, I know of, in less than a year or 2 years, he was telling me that the bank actually loaned him over 50 million to start a business. And I asked him, what collateral did you have to give? Because you don't have a house, and you don't have, I don't think, he was even with a job. But he said somebody guaranteed him at the bank. So,
maybe what he had is called a PG, a personal guarantee. But let's be fair, I don't like that. I'm sorry, I don't like the statement that foreigners are favored. Show me one businessman 40 years ago that has transcended and that business survived other than the Shaib and Mahdis. We had them by
I've met so many Gambians.
Allow me to come. We had them by Giant Sons, we had the NPs and others. Let's not blame the banks. I think sometimes the indigenous people don't understand cash flow and profits. And that has led many a Gambian into financial distress, especially the business community. The banks, for me, they haven't done much in terms of development, but to a point, it's not their fault. Like I said, it's the profile of the investment instruments that are available in country today. So, can that be changed? Yes. How can it be changed? The central bank has just established a stock market, but I'm yet to see a legislation and a regulatory framework to back the stock market, because you need a regulatory framework that will avoid insider trading and other things like that. So it's evolving, but in as much as it's evolving, their role in development could have been more, but also banks are risk averse. They like free risk, and treasury bill is what you call risk-free money. You give the government 100 million, you guarantee your 100 million plus your interest. You give me 100 million and I give you a guarantee, be it I mortgage a property, the risk is high. So the banks really want to mitigate their risk, and it's government who should reduce its appetite of borrowing so that banks will not have a channel to put their monies. Therefore, it will force them to be creative in lending and create better risk mitigation strategies.
Right, but would universal lending not be a solution for risk mitigation? Like, if you lend to more people, you're likely to get back from more people. Even if some default happens, it's not going to be everybody. You will still make. That's how the microeconomy I'm talking about. Like, if they start giving loans to small business owners to either improve their businesses or a startup, they should have.
It's difficult to do that because up until recently, the Gambia didn't have a commercial court, a court specifically set up for commercial disputes. So banks sometimes spend 6, 7, 8, 10 years trying to recover money. By then, they've already written it off. So basically, the environment, the legislative and regulatory environment need to be progressive enough to support the idea of universal lending. But as it is today, the financial landscape, I don't think it's prudent for banks to really be lending openly and freely, because how do you track people? How do you know where people stay? People move without being traced. Young Jai alone can have 5 TIN numbers. So basically, the tracking system, our human tracking system, is still poor. So people will go get monies, default, get a new TIN number, go back and become someone else. So they have to.
Technology is the biggest problem then. Yeah.
No, I would say technology. Technology will be a means to an end. The will to create a progressive environment that is electronically driven has to be there first. Then technology will just be a vehicle that we will use to achieve that objective. So if you have a good technology today and you don't have the regulatory and the legislative framework, it's not going to help with the best of technologies.
Right. But the bank should also be, obviously, the role of banking in general is to be financial mediator or mediation or whatever. In the sense, it will always bridge the gap between the government and the people. in terms of, like you said, the loans facility, even the education system, the banks. I think the banks should also play a role in terms of, awarding scholarships to students to basically, because I see people working for the banks and they don't get any incentive in terms of sending them to study or, enhance their education. It's like you just work for them and that's it.
That's a social responsibility, and morality is not legislated. So
yeah, that's true.
Banks. Mm-hmm. It's up to the banks, but it's good business to invest in resources, especially human resources. But notwithstanding, I think the banks will love to do more if the environment is sanitized. So the problem is not the banks, if you ask me. The problem is the financial architecture of the country needs to be strengthened. The financial architecture of the country needs to be liberalized, modernized, and be made to be inclusive. And that is the role of government, not the role of banks. See, banks are nothing but opportunistic businesses. So they will reduce their risk and try to maximize their returns.
Yeah, well, it should have some impact on the social mobility. And obviously, it will reduce the gap between the equal opportunity of opportunities of in terms of the government bearing all the costs.
I agree, but like I said, that's a moral question, but it's not a legal question. So the banks are not breaking any law, but I think as a responsible corporate, they need to do a little bit more for society, not only their staff, generally for society. If you ask them, they'll tell you they have CSR programs, but how effective are their CSR programs and how much of their revenues go to CSR programs? But at the end of the day, I think, like I said, I will reiterate one more time that the government need to do a little bit more. You see, Gambia, we have a great opportunity if we know that we have an opportunity. In as much as Gambia happens to be, we have what you call a geoproximity. Our geoproximity to Western Europe is good. Our geoproximity within the sub-region, not only ECOWAS, but a little bit outside of ECOWAS is good. Are we using this geography to our advantage? By now, Gambia should have been the Cayman Islands of West Africa. The Gambia could have been the Luxembourg of West Africa, meaning we could have made, financial transactions so easy that anyone can come to Gambia open banks, not to do money laundering, because we would have created systems and checks and balances to combat illicit flows of money. But I think the size of this country is so small. We need to focus on service-driven activities to boost our revenue. And the only way we can do that is to be innovative and is to do things, is to be innovative and do things that can grow the Gambian economy. And for me, financial services is one way of doing it, and not to service our diasporans alone, but to create an environment where Gambia becomes a financial hub. Like licensing boats. If you look at Liberia, Panama, they're great nations that license boats. Gambia is suited for such a thing. So I believe government needs to relook what development is and need to get out of the box and get a new skill set and toolkit that look at government as a business, but this business doesn't create profits in dollars and cents, but it creates profit in social dividends. That's how we measure our profitability. And we have KPIs, key performance indicators, and we see who is performing or not performing. And we have a management by objectives whereby everybody carries their own weight. If you look at government as is today, there is excess dead weight, and this excess dead weight is a cost to government, and this cost is taking monies that could have been used in schools, hospital, roads, you name it, and it's not happening to them.
So what about the volume of banking facilities in the Gambia? Because our research actually shows, the population is maybe to 2 million or just over 2 million. And you have like over 10 banks in that environment. Do you think viability in terms of service, you think is it good? Because I think exploitation can only happen in a situation where a small sized country like the Gambia has all those banks, opened in the country. And I feel like that's a cheap way of just basically money laundering, using it as a money laundering vehicle. Because
I think you need to take that back. That's not a responsible statement because
no. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that is what
these banks are reputable banks that have licenses in the US, in UK, Access Bank, GT Bank, and others. You see, the more the merrier. Businesses have a right to live and a right to die. The decisions that they take during the course of doing business will determine their viability and survivability. So I have no problem with, banks, just mushrooming in Gambia, no problem. And if you look at the number of unbanked Gambians, you can safely say that 70% or 75% of Gambians are unbanked.
That's what I was coming at.
Then it means we don't have enough banks. What we have is that banks cater for the commercial class, the salaried class that have a payment that goes into a bank account at the end of the month. And that's about it. How can we change that? I think the best way we can change it is first and foremost for government to do away with paper money. That's the first step. Digitize currency.
Yeah, I was going to come to that. The digital transformation. That's the next question.
Corruption, because there will be accountability and traceability. Today, if someone wires me $2 million, I need to have proof of why I received it. But someone can give me a box full with $2 million and my left hand won't even know that my right hand received it. So for me, these are some of the things that we need to work on. But the banking sector can play an instrumental role in facilitating development of this country, provided we position them to do so. We need an agricultural development bank. We need a housing bank. We need a bank,
corporate bank,
young entrepreneurs with great ideas to have seed money that will be repaid on a soft concession basis. And these are things that the government need to support, because the only way it will happen is for government to be the underwriter.
That's why let me obviously take that back. What I was trying to say is we have so many retail banks. We should have, like you said, specialized banks. To me, I think if we have like a corporation bank, a tech bank like here, where you have the SVP, the Silicon Valley Bank, where it just gives loans to people with ideas, like tech mainly. And then you have like a agricultural bank where the bank just focuses on giving loans to people that are vested into agri projects. Those are the type of banks I feel would make an impact than having 10 retail banks. We've seen it under Jammeh. Truth be told, even the commission did mention that people were using these banks to launder money. It's a fact. I'm not saying in Gambia that's the role of those banks, but I'm just saying if you look at 2 million people in Gambia, maybe 70% of the population don't even have bank accounts. The only people that have bank accounts in
Gambia, equally, if you look at the total deposits in these banks, all the banks combined, it's probably less than 200 companies that own 85% and a public institution that owns over 85% of the deposit. So it doesn't matter. Basically, it's just the quality of the deposit. You look at Standard Chartered in the past, MRC was probably its biggest client, and UNDP. If you look at these two entities, their total transactions probably amounts to 40% or 50% of the bank's annual transactions then. So it's not about the numbers of people, it's the quality of transactions. Yes.
That sounds, so the final question I have is, as on one of your social commenting, you actually said about Jammeh's entitlement prospect that he feels like Gambians owe him at the time. I don't know why you made that comment. I wanted to ask, and you felt like Jammeh always wanted to be a Banjul boy.
No, I won't say a Banjul boy. You need to understand
city
Jammeh.
boy, I mean.
You need to understand Jammeh. Jammeh suffers from what you call social deficit / complex. And it has a lot to do with his journey in life. Jammeh has gone through several homes and mission schools to get to the point of going to Gambia High School. So all along, he felt marginalized in his state of mind. And it doesn't mean he was marginalized. And he had an a certain segment of society. And basically, he has used power indiscriminately to show that group within society that you deserve to be punished. And he couldn't hide it. He's openly stated many a times. It has nothing to do with being from Banjul or being from Congress. Jammeh felt that there is a certain class of Gambians. They're the reasons why the country is not where it is, which I believe he was wrong. You need to understand one thing. We are all equal under the law, but we are not all equal. Why? There's what you call a first mover advantage. I can be a poor person born in Banjul, but I had access to schools 1922. So I went to a school in Banjul. I'll just give you an example. In 1922, I went to school in Banjul. I had a standard 4 education and I valued education. I made sure my kids went to school and they finished high school. Those offsprings of mine also had kids. They made sure their kids went to school and they end up going to colleges. So that first mover advantage creates an elite in society. Look at the Akus. They were probably the most educated group in Gambia because they had a first mover advantage. Doesn't mean that they discriminated against the Wallops, and that's why the Wallops were as educated as the Akus at the time. So basically, Jammeh's notion that a certain group of people are the reason for what he is or what he was prior to being a president, for me was totally wrong. And like I said, today, let's say we're running a 100-meter dash. We are all on the same line in 1965. But in 1965, the advantages I had being an urban dweller is not the same advantage someone in Fonyi had. So by the time he finishes and I finish won't be the same, and the quality of finish will not be the same. So people cannot be punished for opportunities that were availed to them by society. And basically, Jammeh was punishing people for having upward mobility. Did Gambia did well for every Gambian? The answer is no. Could have done better? The answer is yes. But should people be punished for having an advantage, having an opportunity availed to them by virtue of their geography? The answer is no. And this is one thing they use to really invoke emotions against a lot of Gambians. And that emotion created a feeling of self-entitlement, a victimization, feeling that they are victims, feeling that society owes them. And to a point today, a lot of people will just pass you for a lot of opportunities that will come your way because they believe these were the people who enjoy years past. And
the kind of boys I call it.
Exactly. I mean, imagine Gambians going to the point of calling people Kairaba Avenue boys. A feeling of distance.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's very sad if you ask me, because those people are suffering from something. The people you're calling that don't even know what you're trying to say, because in their minds, those people, they have daily struggles like the average Gambian.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
This is something that Jammeh has cultivated, and now there are disciples of Jammeh who propagate this message, and is becoming part of mainstream social stratification, and that is so wrong.
I like to be part of a society that has social upward mobility, and this social upward mobility is based on merit. Our society has been not the best, and we should strive to be better. And I think Jammeh put us backward because even a messenger can be a minister under his regime. And that's sad.
Yeah. So well, the research actually we're gonna close, but the research of why Jammeh actually even took power, decided to stage this coup d'etat, had to do with because we looked at his kingship, which is the foster care you're talking about, his kingship guardians, the kingship, the whole kingship, you know, operations in Gambia where somebody will take their child and give it to somebody because they cannot afford, or they live in the rural areas, they cannot access, you know, like good schools and stuff like that. They will take their children and give them to, you know, people that live in the combos so that their child can obviously have a better shot in life by going to good schools and stuff like that. So we looked at all the pros and cons, and Jammeh probably suffered because, you know, he left home really young. After primary school, basically Jammeh left Kanilai. So you can also say maybe he also misses his parents, maybe he missed the, you know, the Kanilai lifestyle. Because when he became president, that's the lifestyle he basically forced upon us with the dancing, with all the superstition, all those other stuff. Because he did say his parents were healers. That's what.
I think Jammeh was a deprived child, period. And his deprivation created a social misfit. And this misfit had what I call anger. And this anger can only be exerted through a revolt. And the revolt is against people that he believed caused his predicament. And basically, Gambians suffered because of Jammeh's delusional mindset about how society treated him as an underdog, how society marginalized him, and he was never marginalized. Jammeh is a lucky Gambian because he has received scholarships, he has received promotions, he went to great schools like many, privileged Gambians went in Gambia. And basically, I don't think Jammeh knew what sufferation was all about, even though he was in foster care.
That's what I told Amir. I told them, I don't think for the average Gambian from the rural areas, Jammeh actually lives a pretty normal life.
Jammeh in his adolescent days need not walk 3 kilometers to go to school because he was going to school in Gambia at Gambia High School. If he were to live in Banjul, it was just meters, maximum 800 meters away because he was a tobacco at some point. If it's at Latrikunda, he was going to school by car to Banjul. So relative to most rural Gambians, he had a decent life. But notwithstanding, I think one create a social experiment. And this social experiment, for me, it has wholesaled education. Jawara's day, education was limited to a few, but you had functional literates, people who were good at what they do because they received first-class education. So Jammeh opened up the education space by creating universal education. And with universal education, he created access to all. But with access to all, we compromise quality. And when we compromise quality over relevance, what happened? We are graduating people who are not fit for purpose, are not good for the work market and labor market. And society today is suffering from dysfunctional literates, people who are supposedly educated and not fit for purpose.
Okay. So, thank you so much. I'll invite Amir now, and he would, I'm sure he wants to chip in before we close. Amir, the floor is yours.
That was great. I was just listening in and learning so much from you. And I think a lot of the principles that you apply to many of the not only African countries, but around the world as well as they're developing into it. So thank you very much for your time. I know we've gone overboard, but thanks to you, and we'll catch up at another time.
Yes.
And where can people find you if they wanted to connect with you? Is it LinkedIn the best?
No, I have LinkedIn, but I'm not too keen on it. I'm on all social media, but you can see me on YouTube, Facebook. I'm sure Albert will give you my links.
Okay.
I have what you call Nyangjai TV on YouTube. I have Facebook Nyangjai. I'm on Instagram also, but Facebook mostly for my commentaries.
Perfect.
So
Thank you so much.
He will be coming to Gambia in December for the official launching with his team.
Wow.
It's gonna be a big event, and hopefully you will be the main guy we will be talking to once we are ready.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Mr. Chongan, I don't know, is he gone?
Yeah, all right. It was nice. No, I was listening. It was good to hear Young analyze. We don't have to agree on everything. All right. Yeah, but that's the beauty of democracy. That's the beauty of an intellectual debate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's pretty good. I'm excited. I am really thankful for you guys coming on. Definitely, I have learned so many things that I never knew. Even after writing this book, I'm still learning. So, thank you so much for availing of this opportunity.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.